Recently named one of the top 100 people positively influencing Jewish life, alongside presidents, prime ministers, and Jewish leaders. So we are very, very grateful for him to join us tonight. From Chicago, graduated magna cum laude from Northwestern University's School of Journalism, where apparently there were also many to-be rabbis. It's a rabbinical school, and served in the IDF's spokespersons unit. He's lectured in all major English-speaking countries in the world, more than half of the Canadian provinces, and recently made history in Hawaii by becoming the first Israel speaker to have lectured in all 50 states. So we're very glad that he made a stop on his world tour here at Sinai Temple. He lives with his family in Jerusalem. Please join me in welcoming Gil. We also have Jackie Alexander, the CEO and president of Honest Reporting. She's going to come up later. I'll finish her introduction when she comes up for Q&A. But I'm going to turn it over to Gil, who's going to speak more about himself and Honest Reporting. We'll have a chance to follow up with Q&A and have a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Thanks again, Gil.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Moe. You can come in, you'll still be on time. Nice lady, are you coming in? Nice lady talking to Amanda? Okay, all right. All right. So thank you for the warm introduction, Rabbi Moe. As you heard from the introduction, I've had the honor and privilege of speaking in all 50 states, culminating in a talk a few years ago in a synagogue in Hawaii that trademarked the word shaloha. And just in case, I've been speaking lately in the places that could be states one day. You know, I've spoken in Puerto Rico. I was just in Panama. I spoke in Canada. Could become a state one day. Not Greenland. Greenland has only one Jew. So 2 more Jews, they get a Chabad. And I've spoken in Gaza. So you never know. But I've been in Gaza 4 times. My first time in Gaza was when I was an 18-year-old kid on a gap year program between high school and college. And one of the perks of this program was that they took us for a weekend to a resort called the Palm Beach Hotel. And I remember thinking back then about how much potential Gaza had, how beautiful it looked. And that potential was never quite met, was it? My second time in Gaza was as a journalist. I followed around the politicians wherever they went. Here we have our 120 members of Knesset. Here they are smiling at you. These are the people who think they run our country. And a group of left-wing journalists went to visit the Palestinian leader, Yasser Arafat, in order to try to make peace. And I accompanied them, and I remember it like it was yesterday, in part because on the way in, they made us leave our cell phones because Israel had used cell phones as remote controls to kill terrorists. And on the way out, I forgot to take my phone. And an Israeli general and a Palestinian general who hadn't met in months met that day to get back my phone. Now, I tell this story to teenagers, and they react with the ultimate horror. You forgot your phone in Gaza? I won't leave my phone 10 inches away from my hand. I also remember it like it was yesterday, because halfway through the meeting, they kicked the journalists out because Arafat wanted to meet alone with the politicians. But the New York Times lady didn't leave. She pretended to be the daughter of one of the members of Knesset. And so as I'm leaving, I look back from the door and I see Arafat giving her a big fatherly kiss on the forehead. And I remember thinking, gosh, I'd rather die than be kissed by that man. And I lost a little respect for the New York Times already then. My third time in Gaza was as a soldier. I served in a combat unit for my regular duty, but for my reserve duty, I shifted over to Dover Tzahal, the spokesman's unit of the IDF, because I wanted to use my experience and skills as a journalist to help Israel against its enemies. But I didn't get called up for Israel against its enemies. I got called up for the hitnatkut, the withdrawal from Gaza, where my job was to take around VIP journalists and show them the tremendous sacrifice that Israel was making for peace. And one of the journalists I took around was from the New York Times. Another journalist was from Fox. I took them around together, and don't worry, they got along. They were even married to each other and still are to this day. Opposites attract sometimes, but don't try this at home. And so this journalist from the New York Times and this journalist from Fox, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Just got started. They talked back then about how Gaza could become the Singapore of the Mediterranean. And perhaps it could have until October 7th. I mean, look, a year after we left, the Hamas overthrew the rightful Palestinian leadership in Gaza. I don't like the word coup so much. I like the word overthrow because it describes how they took power. They literally threw them off the top of buildings to the floor. They overthrew them. And hello, thank you for coming. The good part is starting now. Before I tell you about my fourth, you did it. Bobby, how are you? Saved you a seat.
Thank you.
Good man, Bobby. Okay, so thank you for passing out the flyers. Sandy, you're so sweet. Before I tell you about my fourth time in Gaza, let me take you to a day before October 7th. On Friday, October 6th at 2 p.m., I had a briefing with Netanyahu's national security advisor. And I was preparing for a speaking tour. He went through all the different security threats that Israel was facing. And when he finally got to Hamas, the word that he used to describe Hamas was restrained. He noted that they hadn't joined the last 3 wars between Israel and Islamic Jihad. And he said what they really care about is getting more workers into Israel. Boy, did we get that wrong. But he was negotiating an agreement with Saudi Arabia that actually finally moved forward 2 days ago in the White House. And according to this deal, the amount of Gazan workers coming into Israel was going to be doubled, which would have revitalized the Gazan economy. That's what Israel was dealing with on Friday, October 6th, trying to improve the lives of the Palestinian people. And that's why it bothers me whenever anybody makes it look like we're this so strong a country and our enemies are so weak. The other side prepared for this war day in and day out for 16, 17 years, building up Gaza as the ultimate fortress of terror, while we didn't prepare at all. And that puts into perspective my last visit to Gaza. A few months into the war, I called up my cousin, who was one of the commanders of our forces in southern Gaza, and I said, I've got a speaking tour coming up. Do you have any stories I could tell the nice people in California? And he said, why do you want stories from me? Why don't you just come in and see for yourself? And I said, really? He said, yeah, just call up this right person at the IDF. So I called up that person and asked to go into Gaza, and he said, no. And then a couple days later, I tried him again, kind of begged him. I said, I'm not worried about my safety. I'm going to a much more dangerous place than Gaza for a Jew. I'm going to UC Berkeley. And he didn't let me in, and I called up my cousin all dejected, and he gave me the ultimate Israeli response of, screw them, they won't know. And before I knew it, I was in a Jeep on my way into Gaza. I toured around Gaza, and I got to see what the soldiers will tell you have been there too. 80% of the homes in Gaza had some kind of terror infrastructure. 80% of the homes. 100% of the schools, the hospitals, the playgrounds, the mosques, the cemeteries. It takes time to remove all that. I'm sure you can relate with I've seen in your neighborhood, Halloween decorations are still up. But a whole fortress of terror, we needed a long war to remove all that. I wish we could have had a 6-day war. We're good at those, right? Unfortunately, we needed a 776-day war. And it's still not quite over. And if you would have told me on October 6th that the world would let us have such a long war, of course I would have thought you're crazy. How did it happen? How could we get away with having the long war that perhaps unfortunately we needed to have in order to get back our security? Well, first of all, the world saw how bad October 7th was, and that we needed to retaliate in a very serious kind of way. The world leaders saw that terror had to be defeated by Israel or it would be emboldened in their countries. They saw, at least at first. And they also saw the contrast between the way Israelis were fighting each other the day before October 7th over issues that seem pathetic in retrospect, and the way we united briefly afterward. But there's another reason why I think that we were able to have a war as long as we unfortunately needed to. And that's, if you compare this war to others in Gaza, the others were really short because the media put pressure on the world leaders who put pressure on Israel to end the war prematurely without any accomplishments. And in this war, we could not afford to let that happen. And that's why I appreciate that people around the world who support Israel were questioning what the media was saying from day one. Let's see what we have in this room. How many of you posted something pro-Israel since October 7th on social media? I appreciate what you've done. You might have lost some friends. I know it wasn't easy, but I really think it made a difference. It's different now than it used to be. Do you remember when you had to write letters to the editor, and you would take a typewriter and some whiteout, and what you'd come up with, you'd put in an envelope and then in a box, and then it would get delivered by a pigeon to a newsroom, and we were an editor with a cigar would decide whether to put it on page 12 or page 13, where people wouldn't understand the context that was from an article 2 weeks before. Well, nowadays, we have AI, and we get alerts immediately when something goes online. We could get things changed within 10 minutes. It's changed, but it has to, because of the danger of when the media get things wrong. Do you remember how 10 days into the war, they started saying that we bombed a hospital, killing exactly 500 people? They knew within minutes that 350 of them were women and another 350 of them were children. Hamas math is different than other math. And the world just bought it. It took us about 4 hours to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that we didn't do it. But meanwhile, the damage was done. Dishonest reporting kills. I'll give you one more example, and then I'll tell you a little bit about my organization. Do you remember how in July, Netanyahu visited the White House and the President of the United States said the war was going to end within a week? It could have. Do you remember what happened the following day? The New York Times published a picture of a baby that looked really bad. And they said that Israel had starved that baby. And by the time it came out that he had a pre-existing condition that had nothing to do with Israel or the war, well, damage was done. And it spread to media outlets throughout the world. And Hamas strengthened its position in the negotiations and did not give in. And then the people who really were starving, the hostages underground, ended up having to stay there for another 3 months. Including, I believe, the guy coming tomorrow. So that's the danger. of dishonest reporting. And that's why, Chris, that's why you can turn on the next screen there. That's why, even though I had a job I enjoyed very much, following around presidents and prime ministers for the Jerusalem Post, you can, and on the side, I was giving interviews. This one's the BBC. Go to the next one, is CNN during the opening of the American Embassy in Jerusalem in 2019. I was the commentator on CNN. They muted the president of Israel, and I was explaining the smoke that there was over Gaza, which was a protective measure to not let people rush the fence. In retrospect, we understand better why that was so important that day. You can, next page, Chris. Then I was offered to become the executive director of Honest Reporting, which leads the fight for Israel on the media battlefield. And I jumped at this chance. Honest Reporting has been around for 25 years, but it was really created for October 7th and since then. We were created when there was this picture in the New York Times of this bloodied boy with a menacing-looking soldier on top of him. And the New York Times said that this was a Palestinian boy harmed on the Temple Mount by this soldier, until his father saw the picture in Chicago, and he said, "That's my son. His name is Tuvia. He's Jewish." And this soldier, who's actually not Jewish, who's Druze, saved his life from an angry Arab mob, which was in Jerusalem in an Arab neighborhood, but was not on the Temple Mount, where there is no gas station. So they got literally everything wrong. And that led to an email group, and that led to a website. And 3 years ago, when the CEO, Jackie Alexander over there, and I joined, we decided to make it more aggressive, more immediate, more technological, more educational. And Chris, if we turn it to the next page, we'll show you it's now our 25th anniversary, and we put out this video.
In the year 2000, USA Today was America's largest newspaper. Time was the #1 news weekly, and each night, about 30 million Americans were watching these men.
We spend more than 3 hours a day on average listening to the radio. Social media and podcasting didn't even exist. And anti-Israel bias was prevalent in the media.
Today, the world is radically different. 53% of Americans get their news from social media. We spend 69% more time watching streaming than broadcast or cable TV. And we're spending more than 7 hours a week listening to podcasts. And anti-Israel bias has metastasized. So Honest Reporting, the world's leading pro-Israel media watchdog, has evolved.
And we're just getting started.
When print and TV were kings, we held them accountable, and we have never stopped. In the past 3 years alone, we've gotten 15 journalists fired or reassigned from leading media outlets like the New York Times, CNN, AP, Reuters, and the Washington Post. And we've driven countless corrections and retractions.
As the media landscape radically transformed from mass media to social media,
we've evolved
and made educating the public through social media central to what we do.
To date, Honest Reporting has delivered almost 500 million social media impressions, with 60% of our audience being millennials and Gen Z. And our work has made an impact.
We've exposed Hamas-affiliated photographers, facilitated an Emmy-nominated segment on CNN, which drew attention to Israeli victims of October 7th, and built a dynamic, interactive map of Hamas's tunnels of terror.
And now, we're creating artificial intelligence tools to help people detect bias and fight back. Our custom-built AI tool continuously scans more than 100 top media outlets and flags anti-Israel bias. In a world fighting an army of Goliaths, we're David, except now, AI is our 21st century slingshot. The world is radically different from 25 years ago, and the world will be radically different 25 years from now. With your help, we will evolve with the times to ensure the world only hears honest reporting. Thank you for making it happen.
You're allowed to clap. So we see ourselves as David fighting an army of Goliaths, but we're not daunted. We don't look at it as a big mountain that can't be overcome. Every day, we get things changed when they report things that are wrong, and every day we impact the narrative. And we have to impact the narrative, especially now, because right now, as the military battlefields come to a close, then the narrative battlefield is going to be continuing. And a big question is going to be decided. In this war, did Israel become an international pariah like apartheid South Africa? Or did we save the world from genocidal terrorists and an Islamic fundamentalist nuclear weapon? It's that big a difference. And if the world continues believing the lies, then it'll only be more dangerous. Terror will be emboldened, anti-Semitism will go up. But even in places where there are no Jews, violence will go. I spoke at Utah Valley University. But if the world believes the truth, then anti-Semitism will go down, terror will go down, Israel is going to have a post-war economic boom. And things will get a lot better. So it's that serious. That's why we're fighting on big things and little things. Here's an example of a little thing. Chris, you can play this very short video.
9 million Palestinians live in Gaza, one of the most densely populated areas on Earth, now being pummeled by Israeli airstrikes.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how many Palestinians live in Gaza? 2 million, correct. Okay, and so CNN was off by only 7 million people. And is Gaza one of the most densely populated areas on Earth? Not among the top 200. The most densely populated places on Earth are Hong Kong and Manila, very far away. So that sometimes we deal with little things like that. And we can turn the page there. A month into the war, we started questioning, how did the, I think we skipped a page there. How did the photographers, really? How did the photographers get there so early that day to take this picture of a soldier being taken out of a tank by an angry mob? This was the tank of Commander Omer Nutra from Long Island, who was just finally buried 2 weeks ago. And this picture was the photo of the year of Reuters of 2023. It was taken by a man named Mohammed Faik Abu Mustafa, who on October 7th went on Instagram Live telling the people of Gaza, you gotta come in, it's so great. I've been all day in a settlement called Sderot, and we've been doing whatever we wanna do with the settler women. We were worried this creep would win the Pulitzer Prize. And we started a campaign, don't give the Pulitzer to infiltrators and Hitler praisers. And where he worked, Reuters did actually win the Pulitzer Prize for international photography, but they submitted no photos from October 7th. They said they didn't want to mar their winning bid because they were being questioned by an annoying media watchdog called HonestReporting that asked about the physical and ethical boundaries that were crossed on that day. So, but how did they know to be there so early? I don't know if it's on the next slide or if it disappeared. Yeah, that one. That picture of the tank was taken by Hassan Asliach over there, and there he is being kissed by Yahya Sinwar, right? So initially we just asked the questions, but later on we found out they had this whole plan. We retrieved it from the documents of Hamas that said they will manipulate the media throughout this war to get their messages out And boy, did they ever. I mean, there were 14 photographers who happened to be on rooftops when the sun came up on October 7th, and they happened to be there ready to take pictures of the rockets that Hamas wanted the world to know were going off at that time, because they were the decoy for the infiltrations that were beginning. So that's been true throughout the war, that the media is being manipulated. The Hamas chief of propaganda, Abu Obaida, was a genius. He was in power for 14 years until a couple months ago when he was finally assassinated. And they succeeded throughout the world. You can turn the page, Chris, in getting people to believe things that were not true. Even the top journalists in the world, and you can play the video, Chris, from where we said.
And I think for sure, a long time for them.
Here we have Christiana Amanpour.
Physically, but
she's talking about the hostages being released from Gaza.
Terrible 2 years for them, because
and this is what she said.
They're probably being treated better than the average Gazan, because they are the.
Hey, you can stop it there.
That Hamas had. Now Hamas has given up all its leverage, by the way.
You heard her say that our hostages have probably been treated better than the average Gazan. So yeah, held in chains, underground in cages, forced to dig their own grave. So this is Christiana Amanpour, someone we really respected around the world. When we got this clip, the moment that it was ready, I sent it to the foreign minister of Israel. He responded within a minute with one word: bitch. And then he sent me a message a minute later that said, Netapel miyad, we'll deal with it right away. And after Israel complained to the top of CNN, they forced her to apologize. She did not intend to. And this was her third time apologizing because of honest reporting in recent years. I'll take you back to the previous one. April 2023 was a very, very sensitive time because Passover, Easter, and Ramadan fell all on the same day. And so the police had a challenging situation. Suddenly, a group of rioters barricaded themselves in the mosque. They were planning on attacking both Muslim and Jewish worshipers below in the morning. And so the police had to go in to disarm them. When they went in to disarm them, then they attacked the police. And then the police had to defend themselves. And when they started defending themselves, out came the phone cameras. And before you know it, images were going around the world. And the headline was, Israeli police attack worshipers on Temple Mount. So that was the opposite of the truth. Made Muslims around the world very upset, tried to kill the first Israelis they could see, and it was the D family. Were on their way to a holiday in Tiberias, a mother and her two daughters, and they were gunned down in their cars. And Christiana Amanpour said they were killed in a shootout. She had to apologize for that too. So when we have these kinds of successes in changing things, it's important that the world know about it. And that's why we've become so active on social media. In the year 2022, before Jackie and I got into high gear, only 4 million people saw our content on social media. Since October 7th, nearly 500 million. And we had to. We needed to make sure people were getting the truth. And social media is where it's at sort of kind of nowadays. I mean, when we were young, I can't believe I started a sentence like that, but when we were young, but before Rabbi Moe was born, and we needed to get a basic fact, where'd we look? What? Encyclopedias, correct. Rabbi Moe, do you know what that is?
I've heard.
Okay. All right. So nowadays, when we need a basic fact, what do? Yeah, we Google it. And if you Google what is Zionism, what you end up with is not so bad. But young people, they use search engine of Instagram at best and TikTok at worst as their source of information. If you TikTok what is Zionism, what you get is hashtag of Free Palestine. And nowadays, even more than social media, it's your different platforms that there are of AI. And that they're asking ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Grok, and they're trying to get true information from there. And that is a problem. And so we need to be there too. We need to make sure those platforms get their information from pro-Israel sources like Honest Reporting, and not just from Wikipedia, Al Jazeera, Reddit, and Wikipedia and Reddit get their information from Al Jazeera. We need to be there fighting the fight. And so we can go on from here. Chris. The magic word is Chris. So why we're very proud that 60% of our content is seen by people younger than me, Gen Zs and millennials. And the reason why is because they are impressionable. When they've been asked the question, are you more pro-Israel or more pro-Hamas? Then the numbers have been going up and down over time. That proves that we can make an impact on them. You can go to the next page here. So among people 65 or older, it's here we have 87%. It's been around 90% the whole war. Say they favor Israel over Hamas. And among people 18 to 24, right now it's at 45% favor Hamas. It means if they know what they're talking about, they're in favor of going to dance festivals and murdering, raping, and kidnapping as many people as they can, but they don't know what they're talking about. But this is a 39% disparity between what the older people are saying and what the younger people are saying. So we really need to reach out to those younger people and make an impact. We can turn the... Where are they?
I mean, it's on the previous slide. It goes like this, right? The older you get, the more pro-Israel you tend to be, but the older you get, the more set in your ways, right? So if you're over the age of 65 from October 2023 to today, there's about a 6-point spread between the low and the high. If you are under the age of 25, you saw the chart, it's going like this all over the place. So the older you get, the more pro-Israel you are, but the more set in your ways you are. If we want to actually be able to impact people when they're in their impressionable phases, the younger you get, the better.
We'll have a chance for questions and answers later.
And that's why every day we put out videos and infographics to reach out to everyone, including the young people. We're 7 hours ahead of the East Coast, 10 hours ahead of you. And that gives us time to put out information, so it'll be ready there about whatever people are talking about that day. So you'll have your weapon, your tools to be able to respond to people. For instance, in the middle here, it says construction of a bomb shelter, $30,000. Bomb shelters in Gaza, $0. Construction of a tunnel, $3 million. Tunnels in Gaza, 400 miles. So Hamas could have built 300 bomb shelters for every one tunnel, but instead there's 0 bomb shelters and 400 miles of tunnels. So it's really important for people to understand why this war has been going on for so long. And so you'll notice that these are women that we put in our videos. I don't put myself in videos too often because there have been studies that have been taken that found that men prefer to look at women. It's true. And the same studies have found that women also prefer to look at women. So here's Sarah, and Chris, you can play her video.
Welcome to Hamas Math. If Hamas fires rockets from a roof of a school, and then Israel fires back to destroy those rocket launchers, Hamas can blame the destruction of the school on Israel. Hamas math. If the IDF calls, texts, and sends leaflets to Palestinian civilians warning them to leave areas that are not safe, and then Hamas lies and tells their civilians to ignore those warnings, Hamas can blame any civilian death on Israel. Hamas math. Building a network of terror tunnels 350 miles long instead of a single safe room in Gaza so that you can get away with terror while blaming Israel for not protecting civilians. Hamas math. If Israel kills a terrorist who just so happens to be wearing a press vest, Hamas can blame Israel for targeting journalists. Hamas math. When genocidal terrorists enter into Israel and commit an act of genocide against Israelis, Hamas will blame Israel for genocide when it retaliates. Hamas math. If Hamas proposes its own terms for a ceasefire and publicly accepts, they can accuse Israel as being the obstacle to peace. Hamas math. If Israel sends in 300,000 tons of aid to Gaza, but Hamas steals it for themselves and sells it back to Palestinians while price gouging them, they can accuse Israel of creating famine. Hamas math.
So this is the kind of video we put out every day, and it can't not make an impact on you. Sarah was an October 8th Jew. You know, before October 7th, she lived in Nashville, Tennessee, married to a non-Jew, not very involved. And October 7th really hit her very hard.
She was partnered with the woman who was on Everybody Must Rain.
Patricia Heaton?
Yeah, is that her friend?
Yeah, she speaks at...
is that her partner?
No, not her partner. She's a full employee of ours.
Because Patricia Heaton has a Gentile friend who's married to a Jewish guy, and that's the organization.
That's Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, yeah.
That's
Elizabeth, the woman working with Patricia Heaton is Sarah.
But they're both in Nashville.
They're both in Nashville, which is how they became
And they're both married to Jewish men, and not
correct.
Okay. So, I think that she does a really good job of the young people can really relate to her.
Hamas logic be more right than Hamas math?
Did you debate this?
No. So one of the things that we have to do with social media is play on existing trends. When this was going around, there was something called girl math and boy math going around, right? Girl math, if you buy something and then you return it, you've made money today and you can go buy yourself something, right? I love girl math. So we were having brainstorming sessions of, we love this, everyone loves it, what can we do? Hamas math. So it's always trending things that we're trying to take advantage of.
Okay, so Chris, you can turn to the next page so we can get to our question and answer session. So this just shows just a bunch of the different videos that went viral. You saw Hamas math there, it said 650,000, close to 1 million now. People.
It's been stolen so many times, it's been seen tens of millions.
Next page. Okay, so there is a debate even within Honest Reporting. Can we change the journalists? Should we only be focusing on the news consumers, or can we get the journalists to be more vigilant in their copy, in reading it again, watching it before they broadcast it, because they know we're looking? And this video might suggest that maybe we can change the journalists. It's you can start playing it. I'll talk over it a little bit, Chris.
Want proof that holding the media accountable pays off?
We were operating, all journalists at the time, and
this is the head of Reuters,
like I was mentioning earlier, that is
Lebanon,
politicized. Yeah. As you can imagine, and as we've seen from various organizations like Honest Reporting and from other watchdogs, basically that look at Western media in particular and try to poke holes in the tweets, in the LinkedIn posts, in the stories of journalists, and trying to accuse them of bias.
Well, here it is, straight from the source. Reuters bureau chief for Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan, Maya Jabeli, recently admitted that scrutiny by Honest Reporting has made her team extra careful while reporting on Israel. But that's not all. Jabeli also referred to the deterring impact of what Honest Reporting does, exposing biased journalists like those who infiltrated Israel on October 7th.
Honest Reporting also accused, Reuters of having been embedded with Hamas on October 7th, which are absolutely baseless claims.
Side note, Maya, read our expose. We didn't say they were embedded, we just asked important questions, which is what Reuters should have done. But thanks for giving the following validation of our efforts to correct an unbalanced media field.
We're operating in an environment where everybody is trying to find bias in everyone's stories.
Yeah. For sure.
And the ones on the ground, the reporters on the ground, are doing their absolute best and working their absolute hardest to find the best way to tell the story. And what that means, that doesn't mean just finding the right words. That means going out and finding the right interviews, making sure that you're balanced in the people that you've interviewed, in your perspective on a story, in the way you're approaching a story, in your headline, in what you're writing, and every word that you use, and how high you mention the death tolls versus how low you mention the death tolls in a story. This is how people are reading the news now. And I think, in a way, it's a good thing, because people are now actually scrutinizing and looking for quality news.
Jebeli is currently responsible for coverage of the escalating conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. And the wire service she works for delivers news to hundreds of networks worldwide. So her words about the impact of media watchdogs like Honest Reporting show that unveiling the truth matters. We're holding them accountable, and they know it. And we make sure they maintain the standards that journalists don't seem to keep unless they know they're being watched.
So you can decide for yourself. Can we really change the journalists? Or should we just focus on educating the news consumers? And when we do, you can turn the page. When we do educate the news consumers, no, we don't want proof. To educate the news consumers, we need to make them understand what's really going on in Gaza and fighting this narrative war. People didn't understand why the war had to be so long, but if you go into the tunnels, you can see how complicated it is. You can turn the next page. We created an interactive map of tunnels underground at tunnels.honestreporting.com. You can go there, follow the tunnels underneath the schools and the UN compounds and the hospitals, and really feel like you're a part of it. And I think the message really hits home after you've been on this page and followed it. You can keep going there, Chris. So it's a visual tool. It's the first of its kind. And we put in stories there about what happened throughout the war. Israel's going to use it at the International Criminal Court because we make such an impression. Keep going there, Chris. And also, if our enemies have AI, then we have to have AI. And we have trained an AI tool to go through the 100 media outlets that normal humans were covering before the war, but we couldn't have been covering so much. After October 7th, it became a fire hose of information. You can't drink from there. So there are 8 categories of media bias that we've been using for 25 years, our humans, to look for throughout the articles and the broadcast. And so we've trained the AI tool to do that and to filter through and highlight anything wrong. And so we're constantly monitoring that way, getting the information, finding out, and so we can change it immediately. We can have an impact, decide what we're going to call in, get things changed, what we're going to go on social media, shame them, and what we're going to write longer form articles about. And I think Jackie will talk more about that later on. So in that case, we can speed through until we get to the last page. What can you do? That's what people want to know. You know, a lot of speakers come here to Sinai Temple, and I'm sure that a lot of them kvetch about what's wrong. Well, I'm not here to kvetch about what's wrong. I'm here to tell you how to make things better. We're very proud that we're making things better, and we can help you help us make things better. Has anybody in the room canceled a subscription to a media outlet for being anti-Israel? Yep. So which was that? Yep. So I'm sure that felt good to you, but I don't know if you did that out of revenge or whatever to punish them. The $100 didn't really hurt them too much. I think it would have hurt them more if you kept on reading it, because then you can highlight the things that they got wrong. And so that's what I encourage people to do. You have an email address up here, action@honestreporting.com. If you see things that are wrong, then please send them to us. If you have a strong following on social media, even better, do it yourself. But if you don't, then we do. We're at more than 100,000 followers on 3 different platforms, and we can make a difference. We can reach the heads of the social media platforms and the media outlets. So that's what I encourage you to do. And one more minute, I'm taking questions, sir. So subscribe to Honest Reporting, honestreporting.com/subscribe. You're allowed to take out your phones if you would do that, or to take the picture of the QR code up there, or it's on your flyers. And subscribe not only you, but your children and your grandchildren without asking their permission, so they can find out what's really going on. Follow us on your favorite social media platform, where you can please share our content. And the algorithms are impressed by that. You know, Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, also owns WhatsApp. So if you share a story on WhatsApp, it'll make the algorithm stronger. It'll make it show it more on people's feeds. You can share it with yourself, with your own private WhatsApp. It won't know who you're sharing it with, but that makes a big difference. And when there's a video, please let it play until the end, because people rarely do that, and the algorithm will be so impressed. You don't have to actually physically watch it till the end. You can go to the bathroom, go make coffee, but let it play until the end. And that makes a big difference. Last couple things that we have up here too. Please, if you have the means to contributing, we are a very small 501c3 charity. Even a small donation will make a big difference, and a big donation will make a huge difference. And my last bit of advice is be a mensch, because if you are a good person, people will trust you as a source of information. And before you know it, your friends of your friends and your likers of your likers and your followers of your followers will be a lot more informed about Israel. And before you know it, they will finally get honest reporting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gil. I'm going to invite Jackie up too. And maybe, Gil, if you want to sit here, I'll take this, and I'll move this to the side so that we can see each other well. I have so many questions, and I'm sure you guys all do as well. But for time's sake, and just make sure that one's turned on. There's a power button here. For time's sake, I just want to ask maybe 1 or 2 quick questions, especially to you, Jackie. Jackie, by the way, is the CEO of Honest Reporting, coming from 15 years at APAC, and is spearheading a lot of the AI technology that we've touched on. I have to ask, though, just briefly first, what was coming to my mind during your presentation, Gil, is are there any outlets doing it right?
In America?
Anywhere besides Honest Reporting, where should we be looking for trustworthy, reliable news coverage?
You know, when I get asked that question, it's usually somebody about 50 years older than you, Mo. Because, you know, we grew up, we get the paper that arrives on our doorstep, that's where we get our information. But nowadays, it takes just as much time to go to jpost.com as it takes to go to latimes.com. So why would you get your news about Israel from the media outlet of a foreign country? That's like me as a big Chicago sports fan, getting my news about the first place Chicago Bears from Yediot Achronot. So I don't think you should get your news about Israel from any American media outlet, to be honest. You can go to Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel, and I-24, and that's what I recommend. And you can. Oh, it's an editorial page, but he's asking for news. And that's actually more dangerous, because if their editorial page is right and their news pages are wrong. But you want to add to that, Jack?
Please, Jackie.
For those who are reading American news or any sort, can everyone hear me? I yell better than this. Read more news, not less. No one is getting it right all the time. Everyone is getting it wrong some of the times. Read more news. Understand the bias that you're being exposed to, so that you can understand what the full picture is. There are a lot of aggregators of news now, like Ground News, that will give you a fuller picture to help you understand what bias is being shown based on right, left, and center. Now, to be clear, I disagree fully with what they characterize as right, left, and center, but at least you can see the groupings. But read more news, not less, because no one's getting it right and no one's getting it 100% either direction.
Right. Rely on statistics, which is a great transition to the question I want to ask you, Jackie, about some of the AI tools that you mentioned that Honest Reporting is implementing in order to combat bias and misinformation in the media. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how those tools are implemented. We were chatting a bit beforehand about how AI gives you news anyways. That was a realization for me. And maybe you can also discuss what are some of the promising developments in AI, also some of the dangers that we should be aware of in coming down the bend.
Great question. So AI does not give you information. AI does not have a brain.
I'm sorry, I just want to give you this one so that those listening at home can hear better.
AI does, is this better? Sounds
Maybe hold it a little closer.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
There we go. I'm used to just yelling without one of these. AI does not give you information. It doesn't have a brain, and it's not analyzing anything. AI is feeding you statistics and probability. The more information is out there on a specific narrative is what it's going to gather and give you. So when you're having a conversation with Grok, with Claude, with Ask Perplexity, with ChatGPT, and it gives you something back, it is not the Bible that God gave us on Mount Sinai. It is probability. You can push back and have a conversation with ChatGPT and tell it that it got something wrong, and tell it where to look for the right information. Because if you're not using ChatGPT or any of these on privacy mode, what you're doing is you're training the algorithm writ large. So the most important thing to know is you're not getting information, you're getting statistics. Just like with social media, you're not getting information, you're getting endorphins. Social media is feeding you things to keep you on the platform longer. That's it. Nothing else matters. So with AI specifically, that's what you need to know, is that it's not analysis and it's not information. So what are we doing? We're getting our content into these large language models. There are a lot of silly little tips and tricks that can take your content and make it more attractive to the search engines within these large language models. So we're making sure that when someone goes to one of these AI models and says, what's happening in Israel? What's the news? Is there a famine in Gaza? Is there a genocide in Gaza? That these engines know to look at the Honest Reporting website for some of the answers. So that's something that we're looking at right now. And as Gil mentioned, beginning in May 2024, we started training in a proprietary AI tool that could monitor the media for us. And now what we're looking to do is to take that, create a transparent methodology, and do advanced analytics so that every month you can see the Honest Reporting bias report and know which media outlets to trust this month or which anti-Israel narratives are trending, and 2 to 3 quick bullet points to push back. So let's take one of the great failures of the organized Jewish community. I'll put ourselves in there as well. Everyone in this room probably, hopefully knows in their kishkas that there is no genocide and there was no famine in Gaza. But many people did not have the words, the simple words, in order to explain that. Famine is a legal definition. In order for there to have been famine in Gaza City, there needed to be 10,000 deaths a week. There were 190 deaths due to malnutrition since October 7, 2023. There is no famine. It is simple as that. That does not mean people were not hungry. That doesn't mean people weren't getting access to all of the things that they needed, but there was not a famine. Genocide is a legal definition. It requires intent. There needs to be no other plausible reason for one side to be killing the other side. Was there a plausible reason for Israel to be fighting a war in Gaza? Yes. To get the 251 hostages back that were taken on October 7th, plus the additional 4 that had been held prior to that. And the war ended as soon as they came home. But when the traditional media and social media and AI erase the hostage stories, people don't know the hostages were being held. Anyone want to guess as of this summer, how many Americans did not know that hostages were being held by Hamas? All right, guys, it wasn't that bad, but it was 50%. But 50%, not that hostages were still being held, that hostages were being held at all in Gaza. 50% of Americans 2 years after the war. When that narrative is removed, then people think that there's a genocide because there's no other plausible reason why Israel should be fighting a war in Gaza. So what we're doing, AI is being used against us. We know this, right? That there are fake videos, fake quotes, fake pictures out there. In addition to our own proprietary AI that we are building, and in addition to trying to optimize our content for AI, we are working with other partners, mostly Israeli startup companies, to make sure that we are using the latest and greatest technology in order to monitor the media, make sure that the people that they are interviewing on TV as regular people are in fact regular people and not, let's say, people who have been affiliated with Hamas Telegram channels in the past, and doing advanced forensic research in terms of following the terrorist money.
Wow. I'm glad to know that you are using AI against others who are using AI in the ways that we don't want them to. I have one more question for you, Gil, and for you, Jackie, which is we've been talking about the coverage of Israel bias and misinformation around the Israel narrative in the media, but unfortunately, we also see a rise in anti-Semitism across the world. I'm wondering what Honest Reporting is doing to combat the anti-Semitism we're seeing, and maybe also from your perspective, how you see the anti-Semitism of today as different than what we've seen in the past.
I'll answer in the more simple level, and then Jackie, who has a degree in the Holocaust and can put it in a greater perspective, we'll go on from there. We know that this war was not easy, that it caused anti-Semitism throughout the world. It was used as an excuse by Israel's enemies who were anti-Semitic before, but suddenly it became socially acceptable. And, the first one killed for that was in Los Angeles. Immediately after the war, in a pro-Israel protest. It was terrible. So I, as an Israeli, I feel terrible about what you've been through. In my family in Israel, they're worried about me when I'm coming here. I think that puts it into perspective. And so I think that if that's what caused it, then perhaps we're more important than ever now that the war is coming to a close in trying to make things better. Because success on the media battlefield is not only the key to success on the military battlefield, which is a quote from Osama bin Laden, by the way, but it's also the key to bringing down anti-Semitism in America and throughout the world. So good luck to us with that. Jackie.
So Gil hit it on the head. Irresponsible reporting leads to murders and attacks on Jewish communities. When Yaron Levshinsky and Sarah Milgram were murdered at the AJC event in Washington, D.C., the guy who murdered them said it was because of the famine in Gaza. There was a direct correlation or a direct line from irresponsible reporting to Jews or Jew-adjacent people being murdered. We've saw it in Dagestan, even though that was not an organized thing. That was still as a result of what was happening in Israel. And to be clear, I'm not saying that Israel is causing any of this, but the irresponsible reporting of what is happening in Israel is leading to attacks on Jews around the world. And that leads directly into anti-Semitism across the board. There is a general ignorance, and I don't mean that saying people are stupid, an ignorance of people not being aware of what's happening that leads them to be part of these protests on the college campuses, that lead them to think that it's okay to ostracize Jews, that think that it's okay to start believing in some of these crazy conspiracy theories like Jews around the slave trade, the Atlantic slave trade. There is a general dumbing down due to what you and I were talking about earlier, which is the overabundance of information that is available to us. a little bit of information is good, right? When we were growing up, and I'm putting myself in that when we were younger category, we were taught history for the most part. They taught it, we accepted it. Then we got a little more information with the advent of Google and the internet and things like that. But there's something called chaos theory, which means a little bit is good, a medium amount is good. Too much information becomes chaos. You have no way of navigating that. And more importantly, we created the internet. We made intelligence accessible. We made knowledge accessible. Then we created social media platforms, and we took down barriers to people across the globe talking to each other. And we never gave people a manual. We never gave people an understanding of how to use this and how to start parsing through all of the information. So I think that right now what we're dealing with is a surge in anti-Semitism. Like Gil said, I have my master's degree in Weimar, Germany, which is the rise, the socioeconomic situation between the two world wars that what allowed for the rise of Hitler and Nazi Germany. And I don't think that we are in 1930s Germany right now. Let me be clear.
Maybe it does.
I do believe that the golden age of American Jewry is over. And that doesn't mean that there is a pogrom coming, and that doesn't mean that a Holocaust is coming. That means that we have been living in a very privileged state, and we will now start to deal with those things that our ancestors dealt with and lived through and thrived. We will continue to live and thrive. It's just not going to be so easy for a little bit while the anti-Semitism is out of the closet. And that's what we're going to be dealing with right now. And in order for us to deal with that effectively, we need to make sure that the front lines of this, which is our students, our kids, know how to have a conversation. And right now they don't know how to have a conversation because as Jews, we love having 3 opinions for 2 Jews. We love things to be complex and nuanced and gray areas. That's where we thrive. We need to help them understand the 2 bullet points to respond to famine, the 2 bullet points to respond to genocide, and how to quickly answer some of these things that are going to be trending.
Know how to respond to an epicurus, a heretic we have in our tradition, right? Be equipped with the information, and all the more incumbent on us to be responsible and skeptical consumers of media. Thank you for that. We have time for questions from you. I'll take them, I'll repeat them just so that those online can hear us. Yes, please.
Yeah, so I've been responding on Facebook, but sometimes I wonder if I'm really accomplishing anything. And then I get sucked into spending hours on Facebook, whether it be on Palestinian issue or just getting sucked in there, that sometimes I wonder if I have a life. I still work. Sometimes I just think it's better to stay away from Facebook than engaging.
Right.
What's your name?
Steve.
So Steve's asking, how much should we engage with social media at all?
Yeah.
Steve, it's really incredible. This is the question I get asked the most. People say, I post things about Israel a couple times a week and I get 7 likes. And then I post a cute picture of my kid in a Halloween costume and I get 200. And the answer is that just as many people are seeing what you're posting about Israel as seeing the cute picture of your kid dressed like a bear. Like they're just not clicking like on it because they're worried about offending the Pakistani guy or Indian guy, they don't even know who he is, down the hall in their office, who may or may not be Muslim, but they're learning. And Steve, you're making an impact each and every day. And I thank you for it. I mean, I don't know if you're retired but you're a soldier fighting for Israel just as much as anybody in the IDF.
Wow.
Your mental health comes first. So when you say, should I still be doing this? Mental health first. If it's driving you crazy, you shouldn't be doing it. But, big but there. The rest of what Gil said I agree completely with. One of the things that when we're teaching younger people how to understand whether there should be a red flag in what they're looking at, one of the things we say is play in the comments. someone may have already debunked this and brought out a new perspective, so you don't actually have to do the work. It's just like reading more news, right? So you see something doesn't make sense or you want to know a little bit more, click into it, look through the comments, see what someone else has said. So there's two sides to that coin, right? By commenting on an anti-Israel post, that's the endorphin that we were talking about, right? You're giving the algorithm, you're saying, this engaged me. Show this to more people. So on the one hand, negative. On the positive, if more people are seeing that and you can debunk it and say, this is a lie. This photo isn't from Gaza, it's from Syria in 2017. The Damascus affair was not a real thing, whatever the trending libel is that day, and give someone else that information, then you're doing a good service. So you have to weigh it out. Definitely don't put comments that don't help. Don't go there and say, liar, right? But if you have information that can counter, you might actually be helping someone.
Right. Well, see, the other thing too is like where you define genocide, and I haven't gone and looked for the legal definition, but I know that they're wrong. But I feel that somebody ought to post the legal definition right there from the Geneva Convention.
They are. It's more than that. The legal definition was changed after Sarajevo. The legal definition requires intent. So most people just say, it requires intent. You cannot prove that the Israeli government has the intent to destroy the people, therefore there is none. In Sarajevo, the court case that came out basically said, we looked at this and there was no other plausible reason for these people to have been murdered, and that introduced a new, so that's not from Geneva, it's from the court case, but that introduced a new barrier that had to be hit. So again, it depends which platform you're on. There are a lot of international lawyers on Twitter who are fighting this fight on the legal definitions every single day. I don't see it as much on Facebook and Instagram, but now you know. Intent and no other plausible reason. And by the way, it's a great way to show the other side too, right? Was there any plausible reason for Hamas on October 7th to go into Israel and murder 1,200 people?
1947.
Okay, so I was having a conversation with a student group the other day about this. Maybe I'll give you, that's why they crossed the border. Why did they murder 1,200 people, including babies and children and dogs and grandparents? Not why did they leave Gaza? Maybe I'll give you that one. Was there any other plausible reason for why they would be murdering those people?
B'Tselem Elohim is only Christian and Jewish.
It was genocide. It was the intent to destroy in part or in whole a group. There is a plausible reason for Israel to be fighting a war in Gaza.
Thank you. Yeah, so we have to be equipped with the knowledge in order to be teachers ourselves.
And it's incumbent on us to simplify the answers so that you can have informed conversations. And that's what we try to do through our social media, through the articles that we send out.
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
On October 13th of 2023, I was in Warsaw at the opening of an exhibit about diplomats who help save Jews during the Shoah. And I was asked to speak because I was talking about one. And it happened to be the Bereshit, happened to be the reading of Bereshit. And I talked about the fact that B'Tselem Elohim is a concept shared by Christianity and Judaism, but not shared by Islam. And I questioned if that could explain to some degree how they would behave. But I don't hear many people talking about that in the first place. And my other question, people are afraid to say anything that's critical of Islam because of the attacks of Islam. But my other question is, can you contrast yourselves to Camera and other similar organizations?
Okay, so let's focus on that question. How is Honest Reporting different from other media organizations that are doing similar work?
I don't think there's a single nonprofit that is looking at the tech world the way we are looking at the tech world. 25 years ago, we were a media monitoring organization looking for corrections. Today, we are literally talking to tech companies across Israel and across America, making sure that we can put our narrative information at the vanguard of where people are searching for information, meeting them where they are. So in addition to doing the media monitoring, in addition to making sure that people are equipped to understand the bias that they are seeing every single day in the media, the fact that we are reaching almost 500 million people, again, 60% of them Gen Zs and millennials since October 7th, and now looking at AI, so how we can be informing information is something that no one else is doing.
How do you reach these people? I mean, do they have to be on your website? Do they have to, favorite?
Social media. So we have, Barry Weiss likes to say that she has readers of the free press who have no idea that there's an Honestly podcast, and she has listeners of the Honestly podcast who have no idea that she has the free press. We have the same thing. We have a 65 and above, mostly, readership of our email list. They get 4 emails a week with our original content, with our media commentary, and with a recap of everything we've done on social media. Still not entirely sure they know what we do on social media. And then we've built a social media machine. We started it in 2022 when we were basically non-existent. On October 6th, 2023, we had 3,500 followers on Instagram. Today we have 127,000. On October 6th, we did not have a single platform with over 100,000 followers. Today we have 3 platforms with over 100,000 followers. We have built our following using young, attractive people, both men and women, who are doing their best work to engage people. They're not sitting there saying, what information can I put out there? They're saying, how many words can I remove from this sentence? It's too wordy. It hurts my eyes. Okay, now I like how this looks, or I like how it sounds, but what picture will be most impactful when I put this up on the screen? It takes sometimes 6 to 8 hours to create one single post, a graphic post with some writing on it, to put out onto social media. We have a team of people that are working around the clock, because we're based both in Israel and in the United States, trying to figure out how to give people the words to have these conversations. It's not easy, but we understand how important it is, because we're distilling information. We're taking really complicated topics and trying to make it engaging. The video that you saw on Hamas math, it was cute. There was so much information in there. So it was, how do we do information? How do we show it, right? Because she's not just saying the information, she's writing it out. That was not something that we had originally brainstormed. Then it was tying it into a trend, being aware of. We are literally spending 24 hours a day thinking about the most impactful way to get these stories out to people. And going to your other question about how we're not allowed to talk about Islam, one of the most important conversations that we need to have, we're not having right now, at least not outside of the Jewish community. Omer Shem Tov is going to be here tomorrow night. You're going to hear survivor stories. But every single day, survivor stories are being told from the hostages. And they're talking about colonialism, right? They're talking about how Islamic Jihad terrorists tried to convert them every day. They're talking about sexual assault, famine, beatings, tortures. Did anyone here read Eli Sharabi's book, Hostage? Okay, you must. He talks about the fact that everyone he spoke to under the age of 30 in Gaza is bloodthirsty. They want to go out and kill Israelis and Jews. Now, that statement right there can be misconstrued. And if someone just takes that clip of me speaking and it goes viral, my life will probably be destroyed. But it's an important conversation that needs to be had, because after 1945, no one questioned whether there needed to be denazification, whether there needed to be an occupation in order to do re-education. Same thing with Japan. There was even that conversation for de-Baathification. Didn't work so well, but at least they were having the conversation. No one is having that conversation outside of our community on Gaza, because no one is willing to talk about the stories that are coming out of these hostages in Gaza. That's a conversation that we haven't figured out yet, but we are thinking every single day about how to have and how to tell that story so that people will listen. That's how we reach people.
Are we reaching people on the live stream? How many people are there, Rabbi?
You know, I don't have it accessible on my phone. We can check. Alana is our resident YouTube watch person. We have time for one more question if we have from the audience. Yes, please.
I see 3 hands.
Oh my gosh. Okay, you know what we'll do? I'll take the questions and then we'll field them all at the same time.
Perfect.
Please.
10 watching right now.
10 watching, and it fluctuates, so there are probably more.
A year ago here, there was a journalist from East Jerusalem, an Arab, and he said that in Islam, there's no word for democracy. He said it's like a phonetic word. So we're on the defensive. They don't believe in free speech. They just believe in Allah being the ruler, and you can't talk about Islam. But that's the crux of the matter. But
So what I'm hearing is how do we combat the other side when we don't share the same values when
values and they don't feel about talking the truth.
we're coming at the conversation from different perspectives, bringing different values to it.
Might be to provide them with Ozempic so they won't be hungry. Just flood Gaza with Ozempic.
Okay.
That's a real solution.
Coming at it with different values, how do we broach conversations when we don't share the same belief in free expression? Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, we just, are you aware of this gentleman, Javier Jeruso? He works for PragerU.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's Javier. I always pronounce it Xavier in my head.
Whatever.
Yes.
I live in California. Everything's
yes, I'm very aware. He's great.
Yeah. Do you have people like that? Sassy, engaging.
What kinds of reporters of voices do you have working for you? Was there a third question? Yeah, Dan.
I think it's great that you're reaching out to people with live programs, but I think in time, AI becomes the generator of most of the information people are going to get. So how can you increase the amount of information that's honest reporting, gets out and affects what AI has? Can you just do it through yourselves, or do you have to give information to other sources and make sure that they quote that as information?
So how do we increase the honest reporting that's out there beyond the work that Honest Reporting is doing itself to promote that? Okay, so we've got competing values, we've got spokespeople, we've got promoting honest reporting generally.
I'm going to go backwards order.
Please.
And then jump in wherever you want.
Then I'll wrap it up at the end.
Great, thanks.
AI is very interesting. So without getting too far into the weeds, 20 years ago, we were talking about search engine optimization. You put certain things on your website, it brings you up to the top of the Google results. So what's happening with AI, again, it's looking for probabilities. So we know that specifically OpenAI, which is ChatGPT, is looking for information from Wikipedia and from Reddit. If you have not read the articles about the problems with Wikipedia, you should. They were written mostly by pirate wires. We know we can't change Wikipedia, although over the last couple of months, Wikipedia has seen about a 30% drop in web traffic. So that's actually going to impact how much it's going. Reddit is another problem as well. And you should do this what is Zionism search that Gil was talking about on TikTok. You should do it in Reddit as well. So that's two places. But there are some other things that are happening with AI. Most of us have websites on something called WordPress sites. WordPress is the bottom of the barrel for AI. They don't like searching them. So if your information is on a WordPress site, it's not getting there. Substack has a contract with OpenAI. So if your information is on Substack, it will go into AI. So then you start playing with probabilities, right? How many different places is your content? Are you just publishing your stuff on your website, or are you duplicating your content in text form on, let's say, a Reddit site, on a Substack site? Whether you are promoting that you have those accounts or not, how many places can you put not exact content, but let's say 90% similarity content on various sites so that you can train it? And then how many of those shadow sites can you create? That's how people are doing optimization for AI right now. So we're clearly not the only ones looking at it, although I would posit that if you look at everyone else out there in the Jewish world, and again, we're not hiding the fact that we're looking at this, no one is looking at it the way that we're looking at it. We're really trying this to be a global solution, not a flat solution looking at the last war. Does that answer your question on AI? Okay. Xavier is awesome. He is a character. We have, what we've started doing is creating an incubator of sorts where we are bringing in people who have small to medium followings that really want to start being in this space but don't know how to do it. They're not big enough to be monetizing, so they're not the big influencers you would think of. But you know, there's a woman in LA who is a backup dancer for, he was a Backstreet Boy. No,
oh my gosh.
Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake. Lihi Katriel, she's a Yemeni Jew. So she's a Jew of color. She is wonderful. She comes at this from an entirely different place than we do. She reached out. She'd like to start working with us. Great. We're going to give you a 3-month contract and see if our audience responds to you. So we're doing that with about 5 different influencers, again, micro-influencers right now, because there's a whole TED Talk that you should watch from Malcolm Gladwell about spaghetti sauces, but suffice it to say, some people respond to Gil, some people respond to me, right? He's very approachable, I'm very intense, and I usually yell at people. We attract different spaghetti sauces, that's good. It would be horrible if we were both up here attracting the same one. So we're trying to look at that. Have gentlemen, have ladies, have Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahim, whatever it is, and everyone coming at it from a different place. Sometimes we work with those influencers and they just don't hit for our audience, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're not good. It just means that our audience isn't responding to you. What's very interesting is you can see if you're on your own profile page and you go to another page, you can see how many followers you have in common. So every now and then, when I have a few minutes, I get bored and I go online and I try and see, based on some of the other big pages that should have similar followings to us, like a Stand With Us, how many do we have in common? Now, they have millions of followers. We have 127,000 followers. We have half a dozen followers in common.
That's it?
A couple dozen, under 100. We've done it with Hen Mazik, we've done all these. In every scenario, it's under 1,000. It's somewhere between 50 and like 700. And all of these accounts have significant numbers of followings, but people are coming to us specifically for the media angle. We've tried doing content the way Stand With Us does it, some human interest stories, even when they're hostage stories. Algorithm doesn't like it on us. Our followers don't like it. So that's a good thing. We're a niche. They're niches too. That's a good thing. You're never going to attract all the same people. And you know, everyone complains about preaching to the choir, that we're all in our own echo chambers. This proves we're not, right? None of us are. We all have the people that respond to what we are putting out there, which means we need to be working together to make sure that we have the same information. We're talking about things in at least similar ways, but in a way that attracts our specific spaghetti sauce. So that's what we're doing with that.
The values one I'll do.
Okay.
He's not listening. So, yes, sir, I'll address the values. that's what we're trying to impart to the young people. And if you don't like the values that other people are doing, I totally understand. But we've got a responsibility, and what I try to impart to my children is that you never know when you're going to have an impact. Queen Esther, she was in the right place at the right time, and because of that, she changed the world. And nowadays, that Esther moment could be when you're responding to a talk back on an article on the LA Times Online, or when you're responding on social media to a post that someone did, and you're changing their mind. That the social media companies decided that they had to have community notes. Twitter was doing this initially, and then Facebook and Instagram are adopting it. So that way the minority voice has to be heard. And as a great minority as we are, especially on TikTok, it's really important that there might be, a huge 54 times as many people on the other side, but the social media platforms are making sure that there'll be somebody on your side too. So if you're sharing our content, you never know if it's being seen by someone who will be elected to Congress next year, or who will be president of the United States one day. You really never know. And that's why I appreciate what you're all doing. I appreciate that you came here tonight when this synagogue is oversaturated with programming. You decided to come here to hear us, that you cared deeply about the future of the state of Israel and how it presents itself. So your values are clearly in the right place, and good luck passing them on to the children and the grandchildren. And that is what gives me hope for the future. Gives me hope for the future is that the great-grandson of Moe Howard is Rabbi Moe Howard, This is, I'm sure he'd be so proud right now to see you on this stage tonight, that he did it right. And so I wish the blessing that he had on all of us, that we should have a great grandson who cares and who gets it exactly the way we'd want to, that we'd all have a great grandson like him. Thank you very much.
Well, that's quite high praise. Amen to that. And I'll say, to quote you, at quite the precarious time that our world is in, I think we can all agree. I'm grateful that we have Honest Reporting there to rise to the challenge. Now it's our turn to take the torch and carry it back into our communities. Follow, subscribe, donate to Honest Reporting. Join the fight for the narrative, which, as you said, Gil, is just as important as the fight for our country on the ground. Thank you so much, Gil and Jackie, for being here. Thank you to the Flesh Family Sinai Temple Israel Center for sponsoring this event. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention, as has been mentioned, tomorrow night we have Omer Shem Tov coming to speak, 7 p.m. December 17th, mark your calendars, Eli Sharabi is coming to speak. If you haven't read his book, highly, highly recommended. Hope you'll join us for both of those and for all of the tremendous slate of programming that we have coming very soon. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you again. Good night.
Please take flyers. We have cards.
Yes, please take flyers. Gil and Jackie, I'm sure if you have any lingering questions, would be happy to answer them.